Today, Sakshi Singh from the Center of Linguistics, JNU, is presenting on case in Indo-Aryan languages, and it's going to be a very interesting talk, I believe. And uh, Sakshi, it's all up to you now. Go ahead, Sakshi.
Hi
Uh,
everyone. Can
yeah.
everyone hear me?
Before we, yeah, yes, Sakshi. Before we start, Sakshi, would you like to have questions in midst of the talk, or would you have them after the talk is done?
Both are fine, but like I would, so there are sections in my talk. We can have, I will tell you when I want questions, and if there is something that needs clarification, then we can have in between.
Sure, sure. All right. So people can just raise their hand, or they can type their questions in the chat window. And whenever Sakshi jumps from a section, and then we can put the questions to her. I hope that's okay. So yeah, Sakshi, please.
Okay. Hi everyone. Today we are going to talk about case in Indo-Aryan languages. The title might be a little misleading because the data that I have is mostly from Hindi and Haryanvi, but the topic that I'm discussing and the analysis that I'm discussing that works for most Indo-Aryan languages. That's the name. Okay, so let's get into it. So this is the outline. First, we will discuss what is case, and then we're going to talk about one of the typological systems that works for Indo-Aryan languages, which is Vaugraf's layers. And then we're going to talk about a particular problem set in Haryanvi, which is my MPhil topic. So first of all, what is case? And the case that most of us see and in the beginning of at least linguistics or otherwise in our grammar books is the prototypical example is that of the case from inflectional languages like Latin and Sanskrit. So you would have something like friend, which is amicus, which is your nominative whenever it is in the subject position would be amicus. And then when it's accusative, that is in the object position, it will become amicum. So you can see that the root is being modified from amicus to amicum. And then for genitive, it becomes amics. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I'm hoping it's amici or amici. And then for dative, that is indirect objects or ablative, it's amico. So this is called inflectional case where the root itself is being modified, and it is affixal in nature. So that is the affix gets there is an affix, there is a morpheme, small morpheme, and that gets attached to the root, and it can't exist on its own. And then it also represents a grammatical relationship in the sentence, such as marking of the subject or the object. So this is your prototypical example and structure of case. Um, then you have something called case feature in the grammar that we are trying to build for all different languages and the universal grammar that we have. So when you talk about case filter in syntax, a case filter is a filter which requires an overtly realized NP argument to be case marked or be associated with the case position. So basically in a sentence, if you have an NP, it should be case marked. So that is your case filter. And then for different heads, they assign different sorts of cases, like verbs and prepositions are accusative case assigned as, at least for English. So this is your case filter in syntax. And if someone has questions about this, we can, if it's not clear, we can uh, talk about it a little more. Then, is my voice breaking still?
No, it's very clear to me. So I'm just, yeah, I think it's fine for everyone. Archana, I guess like you can reconnect or something.
Okay. Should I go ahead then?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay. So this is your case filter in syntax in your grammar. And then when we talk about case, so we have seen two types of case now. One is the abstract case that you see in your grammar, which is the case filter. And then you see this case that you saw in Latin, which you can see it on as a morpheme on the word. So what then case, does it refer to a form or does it refer to a grammatical relation? Can you mark a case without having a morphological realization of it? So can we then rely on form-based description where you can, instead of saying nominative, accusative, dative, you just refer to the form itself and you say the form is say for amicum, and then you say the form or the I form or all of that sort of thing. So do we need this case feature in the language? So the answer is yes, because we have to generalize over different forms of different inflectional classes, because this amicum form will not always be constant. It will vary depending on the word you have. It could be something else for another word, which is say of a different gender or of a different number. And also for case allomorphy, which you can see in Turkish, where you can have two different sorts of morphemes to mark the same case. So to abstract over all of this, to generalize over all of these, we need a case feature in our syntax. So then we talk about case in Indo-Aryan languages, and we know that case is present in Indo-Aryan languages too, but we also know that it's not always inflectional in nature, as you see in Latin and Sanskrit. So then we will talk about how does it fit into the case theory of generative syntax, and what is its morphological form, because as we will see that it's not as simple as Latin or Sanskrit, where you can just identify the morpheme being attached to the root. So any questions so far, if anything is not clear?
There haven't been any questions yet, but yeah, people can raise a hand or something. Or I think we can move forward.
Okay.
I'll put the questions to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, okay, sorry. Okay, so then Zograph and Masika divide Indo-Aryan case into three main layers. So first is called the inflection proper. The second layer is phrasal affixes or postpositional clitics. And we will see why I'm calling them phrasal affixes or clitics. We will see a reason behind that. And third layer is the proper postpositions. So the layer one, so this is the layer which appears as an affix on the noun which gets case. So for example, in Hindi, nouns may inflect for singular or plural numbers or for three forms, or which Spencer 2005 calls direct form, oblique form, or the vocative form. So here in the example, you can see that your direct form is ladka, and then the plural form of that is ladke. And then when you have oblique, when you have in the sense, oblique here means that when the alternate form basically. So when you have a case marking here, you will say ladke ko or ladko ko. So this change that you see in the root, this is called the oblique case, and this is the first layer because it's inflectional in nature, as you can see. Sorry, yeah, I'm pointing my finger. Okay, so this is as you can see here, this portion is ladke and ladko, and then vocative form are ladke, o ladke, or o ladko. And then you can see that you can have various four different uh, varieties of it. You can see that for house, you will not have vocative because not uh, uh, it's not alive. So you have makan and makan and makano. And then for ladki, you have ladki, ladkiyan, ladki, ladkiyon, and then same vocative. And then for maize also you have these different forms. So this is the inflected noun forms, and this is called the layer one, which is the proper inflection in Indo-Aryan languages. And then, so layer one has basically two main properties. First is that they must be repeated on each noun of the conjoined phrase. So when you have two noun phrases and they are conjoined together, so when you say Ram ne ek chूहे और एक कुत्ते को देखा, so you have चूहे, and you have kutte. So basically you have this A marking appearing on both of them. You can't say Ram ne ek चू or ek kutte ko dekha. You can't have this one A over, coming over the conjoined phrase. Like you can have the ko. You can either say Ram ne ek चूहे को और एक कुत्ते को देखा, or you can also say Ram ne ek चूहे और एक कुत्ते को देखा. So this layer sticks to the root. It can't be conjoined, repeated. It has to be repeated on each noun of the conjoined phrase. And then the second property is that they trigger agreement on attributive modifiers and must be repeated on all inflecting modifiers within the NP. So attributive modifiers, like you have adjectives. So if I say Ram ne ek mote chूहे ko dekha, so you can see here that mote, instead of mota, you say mote. So it takes the same form as that of the chूहा. So chूहे and mote. So this gets transferred over to the oblique gets transferred over to the adjectives also. So if you have lambe, mote, chूहे, so all three of them will get the same oblique case. So now Okay, any questions so far? This is layer 1. And then we're going to move on to layer 2 if there are no questions.
Guys, are there any questions?
I think it's fairly simple so far, but
Okay, Shubham has a question.
yeah,
Shubham,
Shubham.
yeah, you can unmute and ask your question. And then
Hi Sakshi.
Hi.
Like this attributive modifiers, why are they always adjective, not other categories?
There can be other categories, but I have given an example of an adjective here to keep it simple.
Okay. Thank you.
Aisha?
Yeah, so Sakshi, I just want to go back to Ram ne ek चूहे को और एक whatever कुत्ते को देखा, right?
Yes.
Right. So if you repeat the ko,
Yes.
you give you versus, is there a genuine option in your grammar that you can say this either with राम ने एक चूहे और एक कुत्ते को देखा, और राम ने एक चूहे को और एक कुत्ते को देखा?
I can say it with both.
But so I was wondering that for you, does this not? So in this Ram ne ek चूहे और एक कुत्ते को देखा, you're talking about one composite event, right? I mean, it's not.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah. I should have mentioned that. So if I do ek चूहे को और एक कुत्ते को देखा, it means that they might have been seen separately and not together.
Or necessarily two seeing events?
Not necessarily. I can have them together also.
So one way, I mean, since you brought up this diagnostic, is it possible that one way that we could tease these two readings apart is if we use something like एक साथ चलते हुए देखा?
Okay, let me see. राम ने एक चूहे को और एक कुत्ते को एक साथ चलते हुए देखा. That's okay for me. So I can have that as well.
And what about other Hindi speakers?
Yeah, we can have that judgment.
Yeah, it's
open
fine
to everyone.
for me.
With the
Judgment is fine,
Yeah.
but still there is an inclination when both of them have a case marker, it's two separate events.
एक साथ चलते हुए याद कर?
Not
नहीं,
necessarily.
बिना-
I get a more specific interpretation where I'm selecting those two entities out of a set that I specifically saw एक चूहा और एक कुत्ता walking together, not others.
तो you're तो in perpetual contrast mode. So राम ने एक चूहे को और एक कुत्ते को एक साथ चलते हुए देखा.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fine
that's
for me.
fine. Yeah. And if it's just एक चूहे को और एक कुत्ते को देखा, then you can have like a reading where you saw them separately. But the एक साथ
Exactly.
makes it fine.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, I think I agree too. Which is rare.
Okay.
Considering I have only old judgments, I think I agree.
But I have old judgments too.
Me too.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that was layer 1, and these were its two main properties. And so now we move on to layer 2. So layer 2 is the one that is the most interesting, at least to me. And so these are a small number of postpositional clitics or phrasal affixes. So clitics are basically they are whole words, but they attach themselves to an NP. And so in English, you can have the genitive marker and that attaches to the whole phrase. So either you can call them phrasal affixes or you can call them clitics. So these are also called simple postpositions by some people. So these are used to realize grammatical functions such as transitive subject for ne in Hindi. These are Hindi examples, and direct object ko and indirect object also ko, as well as a variety of other adverbial functions. So most of these morphemes that you're seeing here, these phrasal affixes, me, ko, and you can have me, per, and all the other ones, these stay invariable in the sense they don't change. Whatever might be the noun, whatever might they be attaching to, they always stay the same, except for the genitive of the genitive postposition, which is ka, so which changes with respect to the possessed noun. So you can have चूहे की किताब versus चूहे का chuhe ka pen. So if the possessed noun is male, then if the grammatical gender is male, then you will have ka, you'll agree with it. And if you have a female, then it will be ki. So this, and if it's plural, then it will be k. So this varies over, this is not invariable. This varies with respect to the possessed noun. So this is the only exception. All others of them are invariable. This layer actually is a little tricky because some people call it case, whereas other people call it projecting PP. So you can see Button King for a case proper analysis, and you can see Spence 2005, who treats only layer 1 as case proper and layer 2 as a non-projecting PP. Just means that it doesn't project upwards as an PP. So you will have a structure like if it adjoins to an N. So if there's a confusion, I can draw the tree on the whiteboard. And then, so why are we calling them 2004? So you can give me an argument like in if someone is a speaker of Marathi here, they are written like noun. When they are written in orthography, they're like affixes. So in Hindi you write them separately, but in Marathi you write them along with the noun, like as if it's an affix. So we shouldn't rely on orthography, and we should see separately with our grammatical diagnostics to see whether they are clitics or affixes. So just to keep that orthography analysis separate. So there are three main tests which show us that these are indeed clitics and not affixes. So first is coordinate structure interaction. So inflection and affixes do not scope over a coordinate structure. Instead, they can only be attributed to the stem to which they attach, as we saw before. In contrast, the layer 2 can scope over a coordinated noun phrase. This we have seen already in the previous example, so I'll repeat. Chuhe or kutte ko. So you can see here that this A marker gets repeated over both chuha and kutta, whereas the ko marker can take scope over the entire thing and come here at the, chuhe. So this is here and this is here, and then this whole thing comes over, the ko marker comes over the whole thing. So this is the test 1. So that's why phrasal affix, because this is a whole phrase and then it attaches to the phrase. And then you have the second test, which is the focus clitic, which is he in Hindi. So you can see that the focus clitic may be placed between the case marker and the nominal. This can't be done in terms of affixes. So in Hindi, he appears between various nouns or pronouns and the case forms as seen in before. So you can say usi ne kiya tha, usi ko diya tha. So you can have this he marker coming in between the case and the case form, or whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it case or not. So this simple postposition that we have here, and then between the pronoun or the noun. So you can say Ram hi ne kiya tha versus he ko diya. So he marker between. Whereas for a true affix, the focus clitic behave differently. The clitic cannot split an affix from its stem, as seen in 5. So you can't say kut hi. So you can't. That just makes no sense. So you can say kutte hi ne kiya tha, but you can't say kut hi. So that's why we argue that these are clitics and not affixes. And then the last one is stress pattern. So case markers do not affect the placement of stress, while affixes do. So for example, in a trisyllabic word with 3 heavy syllables, the stress falls on the penultimate. Penultimate is the one from the last one, the second last. So you can have talashi. So you can see that the a is stressed. So the penultimate one, talashi. So the la is stressed. In search, it means to search. And then when you have something like ashako, so you would expect the stress to come to become ashako, but the stress remains on the first syllable, where is ashako, not ashako, but ashako. So that way you can see with terms of stress pattern also that these markers do not affect the stress pattern. That's why they are not affixes. Okay, any questions so far? And otherwise we'll move to layer 3.
Any question? Okay, Shubham has a question.
Yes,
Sakshi, I did not understand the second test. Can you explain it again?
Focus clitic.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically he is a focus marker, and you can say that in Hindi you can say usi ne kiya tha. So you can say that between, or Ram hi ne kiya tha. So you can have he coming in between Ram and ne, which is your phrasal affix or your or your clitic, which whatever you want to call it, this name, this ne that you have. So this ne, between usne kiya tha and you can say us he ne kiya tha. So between us and ne you can have a he, which is your focus clitic. But you can't have that when you have a affix. You can't say kutte. When you say kutte ne kiya tha, with terms of kutte, you can't have a he coming in between the affix, which is your a, and kutta. So you can't have kutti a. So this tells you that this indeed is not an affix, because if it were an affix, this he shouldn't have been able to come in between. Does that make sense?
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
Anjali has asked whether the clitics can never affect the placement of stress, like in general.
I think they can, but unless you want to stress it, then it will be an added information. But I think in neutral environment, it won't be stressed. But that's just my judgment. I think I don't know much about the stress pattern.
Okay, no, Aisha says they can. So, and Shikhar has a good question on heavy. Talashi has one syllable with less than one mora. How are you defining heavy?
So I took this analysis from Button King. So I really don't know how they're defining them as heavy. But when I say it, I can see that the stress is at least on la and not on she or tala. It stays on the penultimate. I don't know if they are all heavy or not. So I don't think that's relevant to the stress pattern, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that.
That's okay. Yeah. Sure. Chalo. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so the layer 3 is the simplest or the most uninteresting one, I think, of the three. So these are most definite proper preposition. Sorry, this should have been postpositions. Postposition layer in Indo-Aryan. So it denotes nouns such as upar in Hindi, as in maize ke upar, on top of the table, where the top is linked to the main noun via the genitive. And the genitive here, if you ask for judgments from speakers, they will not identify it as genitive because it form stays invariable, and it just in most cases we have one or two exceptions which we can discuss later, but the genitive forms act as a connector and remains invariable in most cases. So you can also you can have these proper postpositions as appear by themselves also. You can say upar ao instead of having ke upar sort of a connector structure. So this is your layer 3, and today the problem that I'll be presenting from Haryanvi is actually from layer 2. So layer 3, this is all I have to present on layer 3. So any questions so far? Otherwise, we move on to the Haryanvi data.
Yeah, you can move ahead. Yeah.
I can actually give the example for, okay, maybe later. Okay, so Haryanvi data. Let's see. So basically, Haryanvi has 3 different possible markers for a direct indirect object position. So a sort of allomorphy, if you want to call it. So you have ne, pi, and ke. So one of the direct indirect object position marker is homophonous to the ergative subject marker, which is also ne. So this ne marker, as you can see, for accusative dative and for ergative is homophonous, but the other two are not. So this results in a really interesting pattern that we will see. So another marker which alternates with say in the DOIO position across aspects and more perfective aspect is P. So basically this ne and P alternates in all aspects except the perfective aspects. So here you can see in habitual aspect, you can say Ram Sita ne kitab diya kare. You can also say Ram Sita ti kitab diya kare. Or in say progressive, you can have Ram Sita ne kitab den lag raha hai, Ram Sita ti kitab den lag raha hai. So you can have either of the two, and it's perfectly grammatical and felicitous. You can have either of the two, indirect or indirect object position. But in the perfective aspect, when you have Ram ne Sita, so here you can, when you have this ne coming in the ergative subject position, you can't, it blocks the other ne, and you can't have Ram Sita ne Pitya. Ram ne Sita ne pitya. You only can say Ram ne Sita ti pitya. And in indirect subject position, you can only say Ram ne Sita kitab di. You can't say Ram ne Sita ne kitab di. So this is part one, and then there's a third marker ke. This is a very verb specific marker, so it appears only with certain verbs. So okay, this should say future. I don't know why it says perfective aspect here, but Ram Sita ke marega. So basically you can have so when you mean marega as beat, not as kill. So if you want to say beat, you will have to use the ke marker. Otherwise, when you say Ram Sita ne marega, it would mean to kill. So Ram Sita ke marega. So with beat, you can only have the ke marker. So this is very verb specific. So then we come to experiential subject construction. So experiential subject construction in South Asian languages are characterized by thematically prominent arguments. So this basically means that, so you can, for MA first years, I'll explain this a little bit. So basically when you have a sentence like Ram ate an apple. So Ram is your agent who does the eating, and then apple is your theme, which is being eaten, which is being affected by the action. So these are your different theta roles that get assigned. So basically in experiential subject constructions, like in South Asian languages, you can have something like mujhe bhook lagi hai, I am hungry. So you yourself are getting affected and there's no agent as such. So you yourself are the theme, the subject is the theme. So that's why it's called thematically prominent argument, which is expected to be the grammatical subject, is quite often an experiencer, and is marked with the case otherwise associated with indirect object. So basically, mujhko bhook lagi hai, you can see that the ko is actually that ko marker that actually comes with direct or indirect objects here is coming with the subject. And your subject is actually the theme here, which is in that you yourself are the experiencer of this hunger. So that is what experiential subject constructions are. So, and unlike a gative case, which is authorized only in the presence of perfective aspects, dative subjects in Hindi are compatible with any combination of tense aspects. So you can have mujhe bhook lagegi, mujhe bhook lagi hai, mujhe bhook lagi thi, mujhe bhook lag rahi hai. So you can have all sorts of constructions. But however, in Haryanvi, so if you have these ne and ti marker, which occur with both direct object and indirect object, if they are actually dative markers, if they are actually accusative dative marker, then both of them should be felicitous in experiential subject constructions where the subject gets an indirect case. But that is not the case, and you can see here, you can't say Ram ti bhook lag rahi hai. You will have to say Ram ne bhook lag rahi hai. So this ti marker does not actually appear in your experiential subject positions. It does not come with experiential subjects, and you can't say Ram ne. You can only say Ram ne school nahi jana, but you can't say Ram ti school nahi jana. And this ke marker, again, even in experiential subject position, it comes with only a certain few verbs. One of them is samajh, so you can say Naveen ke yaba samajh nahi aaya kare. So this ke marker again is verb specific even in experiential subject constructions. So yeah, so then this sort of distribution that we have here raises some questions.
Yeah, Sakshi, can you see the question?
Yeah, I can see the question. Okay, so yeah, so it has been argued by some people that these are actually both the same, and then in South Asian languages which have the dative and accusative as the same, you don't have a difference really, and so you can. So these are sometimes referred to as. That's why I'm referring to them as accusative slash dative, because we can't really know which one is accusative and which one is dative. You can only know by the position in which they occur, because they are homophonous, or whether they are the same, we can't really say. At least I don't know. I mean, they can be different analysis. I hope that answers the question. Okay, so now on to the questions that this sort of distribution raises. So first question is that what functional head licenses T in the various position that it occurs, and does aspect or mood control its occurrence? we have seen that aspect and mood controls its occurrence only in the sense that it doesn't appear in the perfective, and we have to see if it's actually because of the ne marker appearing there, or does it have to do with the aspect node in the tree. And then what conditions license ne and ke when it occurs in the experiencer subject of experiencer verbs. And why does ke occur only on the objects of some verbs? So why can't we have it across, and why would you have a different marker for a certain few verbs? And I have a certain hypothesis for the ke marker so far, but it's not very it's not in its full form yet. Why do experiencer subjects get marked by ne and some by ke, and p marker does not appear at all when it can easily replace the ne marker in every other position except in the perfective, which I have already raised. And what kind of case is this ke marker, and what is its distribution? And why does the ergative block the homophonous accusative dative marker? Okay, so this is interesting here because I speak Haryanvi, which is spoken in the Rohtak area, and there is another nearby state, Bhiwani, and they also speak Haryanvi, a variety of it, and theirs is more influenced by Rajasthani, I think. And in their language, you can have a sentence like Ram ne Sita ne kitab di. You can have both of the same accusative and your ergative being the same. So you can have a sentence like that. So if it's allowed in some varieties, why is it not allowed in my particular variety? So that's another question to look to. And I guess that's it. So we can have some questions now if anybody has.
Thanks, Sakshi. It was really good. So questions. For starters, I can ask a question.
Yes, sure. Thank you.
No, it was very clear and really good presentation. But so, as you said that the case as a feature, I would want to ask a question on that. So, given that we are heading towards a theory where we are trying to equate everything with the occurrences in the natural world, right? Like
Yes.
merging and etc. So how would you justify case as a feature then?
So I have been thinking about this a lot lately, and I really don't know because case can be so varied over different languages. Its form can look so different, but you have to see that the very basic feature, that is that it some, at least in some cases, it does represent your grammatical relationships. So that you can't really throw out the window if there is a relationship like that. So you can't really remove it from the grammar at all. But maybe we can have a different interpretation of case in some terms which will be more incorporative, because you see that this relationship is not always one-to-one, that it's not always so even in Hindi you can have sentences like uh, uh, वो रात को आएगा. So what does it mean here? What sort of a relation does it establish here? And it seems very arbitrary to have this sort of a representation here in this sentence. So yeah, I mean, I don't think we can remove case altogether from the grammar, but yeah, we really need to rethink how we define case and how we incorporate it into the grammar.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So Aisha, your question please.
Is this the slide you wanted, Aisha?
Yes, this is the slide I wanted. So, Sakshi, I have a question. Actually, it's a question I don't expect you to answer, but if we could think through some of the issues here. So the fact that 6, you can either use ne or ti, right? What is it exactly tell us? So, so for example, in Hindi, I can say मैं राम से मिला.
Yes.
And मैं राम को मिला.
Can you say the Ram ko mila?
I mean, some people do.
Okay.
Right? People who don't. There are lots of Hindi varieties that seem to have a much limited or hardly any distribution of the associative case.
Okay.
Now, does 6 tell us that ne and ti actually occupy the same structural position, or just that this is just a, I mean, that we just know that we can have both these constructions? Do they, I mean, so I understand that obviously they don't mean something different, which is
Yeah,
why
they
you have,
don't.
yeah, which is why you haven't listed it. So in every context that you can get an object case marker. And is it true in 6 for all now? So is it, this is what you had in 6 was a name for animates, inanimates, you know, relational
Yeah,
nouns?
yeah, I have checked for all of them and it stays the same. This distribution, I can have anything here. Ram ne kutte, Ram kutte ne roti devega. So that's also fine. Ram kutte ti roti devega is also fine. So I can have all sorts of nouns here and that does not affect. But I do agree when you say that they might occupy different structural positions, because the behavior of this ne marker in other constructions except in these regular constructions is very different, as we can see in experience and subject positions. So I do think that they might occupy different structural positions.
So is it a possibility, I mean, is there any possibility besides in the object position to distinguish them in terms of that structural position?
Yeah, I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, so that's one question one could add, right? So let us assume
Yeah.
that the facts of ne in subject position tell us that it's not exactly the same as ti.
Yes.
So either one question would be that why does that difference apparently level out
Yes.
in the object position? And is there a different way to, is there any way that we can see the effects of that structure? So you've looked here only in situ, you know, where the object is roughly in situ, the
Yes.
indirect. But with movement, with questions.
Yes. I'll check and I'll look into that.
But just as curiosity, so can you say either see who ne or who ti with in situ?
राम किसकी किताब दे होगा, राम किसने किताब दे होगा, both are correct.
Both are okay. Which is okay, which is, shouldn't, I mean, doesn't tell us that they are the still in the same position. And distribution vis-a-vis adverbs, not that that's a very robust diagnostic in Indo-Aryan. And also possibly, I mean, this is not your synopsis, but I'm just saying that is there nothing that we can, so just forget about this specific problem when one looks at case. I would say that, I mean, this is for everybody who's listening, one can't only look at this, the fact that you can get two possible case forms to indicate that they signify exactly the same case relation.
Yes.
Right, in a string. And that one, to be able to develop a full accounting of this case distribution, perhaps we need to actually extend the set of contexts that we look for this case form.
Yes.
Okay. Other people have questions too, so I'll keep quiet for now.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Aisha. So Shrikar has a question. I probably missed this, but is there DOM in your grammar? And if there is, can both ne and p forms show up?
I did not purposefully include DOM in this because DOM is it's very all over the place. I'm still looking into it, but yes, there is a DOM in Haryanvi. But it's so ne and p marker there. I am not getting very robust judgments from people because it's a little dicey there. So I can, if you're still interested, I will send you my analysis on DOM once I have it a little better. But I'll have to do field work on that because DOM inputs or DOM judgments are very hard to interpret. So yeah, but there is a DOM, yes. And it occurs with both ne and p. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It occurs with both ne and P form. Yes.
So Nupur is asking, Ram kutte ke roti diya kare. Can you say?
No. So this K marker is actually it's like a surface sort of impact, sort of interpretation is so far what I have been able to derive out of it. So if you say Ram Sita ke marega, it would immediately mean ki thappad marega ya mukka marega ya whatever. So it'll be a surface impact. And if you say and it's a very interesting thing, and we were laughing about it a few months back, is that when you have something like so dharna is to keep in Haryanvi. So when I say Ram Sita ke do dharega, that will also mean to hit. So this ke marker, whenever you use it with different verbs, it gives an interpretation of hit in some form or the other. So ke marega, ke dharega, ke sekega, and all of these interpretations. So because it gives you a surface impact sort of an interpretation. So yeah.
Okay, great. I don't see any other questions. There are some references people have shared.
Madhu had a question.
Yeah, Madhu's question I can see. A dative blocks subject verb agreement, but in 7 it's not. Okay,
It's more
so
of an observation, isn't it?
no, it is blocking in 7 also. Ramna Sita Ti Pitya. So you have oh wait. So it's like it's the same as Hindi. When you have Ram Sita ko marega, so you will have a third person, your default agreement there. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, in 7, that's what happens.
Yeah. Okay, and then there are some.
Bornini has a question.
Yes, I have actually looked at semantics of the verb, and I'm still looking because okay, let me read the whole thing. Have you categorized the verbs or looked at the semantics of the verbs with which care can be used? Because in Bangla, with some inanimate objects, care can be used, while most of the inanimate objects it can't be used, other than when the object is definite specific and when the verb is related to some action like kick, when then care is used. Okay, so I will have a closer look at this because I checked with different sorts of verbs, and as I said, when I use it with any verbs, it gives sort of a surface impact interpretation, and I will check with different objects also eventually, I think. But so far, it can be used with inanimate objects as well. So I can say, "खुट्टी के टांग दूंगा." Basically, "खुट्टी" is your uh, what do you call it? Uh, Something that you hang something on, basically. So you can have that I will hang you onto the uh, the nail, basically. So you can have it with indirect inanimate objects also. So yeah, but I'm still in the process of looking more closely at verb classes and different objects. But can you give me an example, Bornini? What do you mean when you say when the verb is related to some action like kick, then care is
Bornini,
used?
you can unmute your mic and answer the question. Like you can.
Yeah,
have-
hello.
Yeah.
So in examples like kick, if I say for inanimate, generally we don't use K, but if I use the verb kick, then I will say Ami, kick is in Bangla lathi, Ami ballta ke lathi marlam. So the K will come, though the ball is inanimate. But if I say I gave, if it's like I saw the ball, then I will not use kick. I volta dekhlam when I
Okay.
saw the ball. But if I kick the ball, then it will be I volta ke lathi marlam.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, but is this like different from your general direct indirect object marker, or do you have only one, which is care?
No, we have only one, that is K, and
Okay.
which is it will always occur with animate objects.
Okay.
But with inanimate, it chooses whether it will occur or not.
Okay. So in Haryanvi, actually, you can even drop the accusative marker even with animate objects. So you can say Ram ne Sita dekhi. So even that you can have. So I mean, I don't know how that is relevant, but
You can say Ram ne Sita dekhi,
yes, I can say that in the
and
grammar.
can you say Ram ne ball ke dekhi?
No, 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 no. So the K marker can't appear with dekhi verb.
Okay, with dekhi word it will not occur.
No, it will not occur. So you will only have ti dekha or ne dekha. So, but the interesting part is this accusative marker can only be dropped in the perfective. So when you have the ergative only, then you can say Ram ne Sita dekhi, but you can't say Ram Sita dekhega. Yeah. So
Can you just say that again, Sakshi? What did
yeah,
you say?
yeah. So I
Say it
said.
again.
Yeah, so in perfective aspect, you can drop the accusative dative marker and you can say Ram Sita dekhega, Ram ne Sita dekhi. But in other aspects, you can't drop the accusative dative marker like in Hindi. So you can't say Ram Sita dekhega.
So clearly, the perfective is a very special domain, because
Yes.
so the phenomenon that you are looking at, which is of these two Ks, two Nas being in competition, also occurs in the perfective. The optionality of human marking also occurs in the perfective.
Yes.
So perhaps you need to the generalizations you want to make from the discussion, one is in the domain of verbal semantics, argument structure, right? That you want to be able to understand it. And the other is you need to perhaps separate out the perfective domain, form a generalization on the others.
Okay. Yes.
Right? And then come to perfective, because this is the domain of what Mark Baker, Alec Marantz and all in Harian is clearly emerging out to be a dependent case domain. So this is perhaps where you'll have to do it. But I think the problem is that every time you throw the perfective into the mix,
Yeah.
its laws are different.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Right? So you need to take that, make a generalization about non-perfectives first.
Okay.
Right, and then see what changes in the perfective domain. Of course, how you analyze the non-perfective as well.
Yes.
I think that would be the way to go.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions?
I don't see any.
Yeah.
But Yangchen has a comment. She says there is also a DOM effect in Bangla with the K marker.
Yeah, but is that a question?
No. I was just reading it out. I'm doing your work, Vyom.
Oh no. All right. Again, she finished well in time, but are there any more questions? You are free to ask.
I'll leave my email ID also in the chat if anybody has questions or wants to discuss a
Yes.
bit more about
Yeah,
case.
whoever's Kinjal shared some readings, so maybe you can email that to Sakshi. Yeah, that would be nice, because it's very hard to copy it from here in the Zoom chat window.
Yeah, I took a
Yeah.
screenshot.
Exactly. All
I
right.
want to say something.
Sure.
I want to say that again, we use the term DOM effect as if we understand what it is, right? And that it's one unitary phenomenon. We know that it's a gendery, but our actual descriptions, just like with the question of case form and case function or semantic role versus case features, we actually have a general ballpark understanding of the DOM effect. So I think Kinjal referred to Bhatter and Agnastopoulos. I have also looked at it, and what everybody comes up with is actually a pretty non-structural argument of what DOM is. But it's a robust feature of Indo-Aryan that you have it, and you can say, so that is basically, its domain is really in the domain of inanimate objects. But as a in any of the, I think, grammatical frameworks we have of either description or analysis of case, animacy is never seen as a morphosyntactic feature. Right? So until we change if the featural specifications of what case in Hindi or Indo-Aryan is are tinkered with a little bit, I think we'll have a better understanding of DOM. I mean, why should humanness play such a huge role?
Yes.
Yeah.
And why doesn't it become an animacy and inanimacy subsequently? Right? We can say it, of course, it's a simple descriptive statement, but looking in terms of the features that are relevant to the syntax of Indo-Aryan, that's not what we consider. We consider gender to be every grammatical framework describes it in terms of gender. But distributions are based of these case forms are based perhaps on another system in which different layers are possibly different feature sets are involved. So I think with DOM also we should be very careful about using the phrase as if we understand what DOM is. I mean, we can use it for some forming states, saying the obvious, but that's not the same thing as understanding. So maybe you should think about that too.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. So Sakshi, could you please put your email ID in the chat window?
Acha, okay. I thought I did, but I sent it to Hindoli. Okay.
And while she does that, I would like to thank Sakshi for this amazing presentation. It was very clear and we learned a lot of things today. Yeah, so thank you, Sakshi, and see you all in the next Zoom Demic session.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye. Thank you.